welcome to another episode of the Healing for the Soul podcast. We have a very special guest today. I'm super excited to hear from him. He is very seasoned and an expert in what he does. So I'm sure he's got a lot of awesome stories that I think you guys will enjoy. So we've got Martin Pytela. I'm sorry, I know that we Pytela, and he is a proven functional medicine expert and metabolic typing coach. And his mission is restoring vitality to you and the planet. Martin uses his vast knowledge and experience to help thousands around the world discover how they can improve their health. And Martin has coached over 12,000 clients since 2011. That is pretty awesome. So thank you so much for being here, Martin. How are you today?
It's a good day, Heather. It's a good day. You know, when you
Good.
wake up on the top side of green, it's all good.
Yes, I love that. So I'm so interested. I've actually never heard of metabolic typing. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what it is exactly that you do?
Yeah, it's really totally available, hidden in the plain sight. Metabolic typing is a name for a process where we investigate how genetics interact with food. And these genetics are essentially predetermined by our ancestors, where they lived. Up to before industrial revolution, up to maybe 300-400 years ago, people would live in a specific geographic area. Like if you were born in Switzerland, you ate the diet of the Swiss farmer. You would,
Right.
kill this chicken on Sunday and butcher the pig in February because you didn't have the fridge. And you would eat aged cheese, rye bread, and sauerkraut all winter long.
Right.
Now, if you're born in North Africa in some Bedouin tribe, you're eating pomegranates, dates, figs, you're drinking camel milk. Totally different affair. If you're
Right.
born a Maasai in somewhere in the middle of Africa, you're drinking cow's blood for food,
Wow.
right? So your ancestors eat the diet that's available in that geographic box. If the genetics are matched, they thrive. If they're mismatched, not so much. And then the next infection sweeps through the village and all the weak ones are wiped out.
Oh,
I mean, it
wow.
was a common experience for a woman to give birth to a dozen in her lifetime,
Right.
but only see 4 of them grow up. So genetics, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Selection, rapid selection. So we ended up adjusting to the food. There are 2 possible dominances in the metabolic processing. One is the control system, and the other one is the processing system. And the label we use, one is called autonomic, the other one's called oxidizer. And the autonomic is acidified by fats and proteins and made more alkaline by carbohydrates. And the oxidizer is flipped the other way around, much the same way as you can have a left-handed person and a right-handed person. And you can't play a left-handed guitar on a right-handed style. It's just, it's backwards. It doesn't
Right.
work. Well, in this case, so a person becoming more acidic is becoming irritable, short-tempered, and in extreme anxious. And if it's inward directed, then it's worries. And if it's outward directed, then it's anger and rage.
Right.
So road rage is an expression of a fairly acidic inner terrain.
Yeah.
The alkalinity is expressed differently. First, procrastination. Mild alkalinity, these people are not abrasive. They're jovial and friendly and really nice to be around, but they don't get much done. And then
Yeah.
further down comes despondence, and deep in over alkalinity comes depression. And you can be swinging back and forth depending on what you put on your plate. If you overdo it in your alkalizing food, you'll become over alkaline.
Wow.
So if I start, because of my genetics, if I start as an over alkaline person, I'll be rising late and I'll be procrastinating, and I'll be fun to be around once woken up. But so if I'm too alkaline, I need to acidify. But depending, if I'm an oxidizer, I need fruits and other starchy things to bring me to the middle. If I'm a parasympathetic, I need fats and proteins to do that. So I need a breakfast that's the continental piece of cheese, piece of salami, and leftover steak.
Yeah. So how do you find out what people are or where people are at?
And so this is done. We have this test, which is actually a quiz online that is about 120 questions, multiple choice, and we'll ask you a few things about your physiology and a few things about how you respond to what I just described. If I eat steak for breakfast, I feel this or that, right? And we
Right.
ask things about satiety, as in when I eat a specific meal, does it make me still hungry after I'm finished and looking for something to finish it with? Or do I feel balanced? And emotions, I described that, right? If I'm short-tempered and impatient,
Those are good symptoms.
that's one. Or if I'm sluggish and can't think my way through a problem, that's usually from over alkalinity. So we ask a bunch of questions and we recheck it with something we call DCR, daily check record, which is like for 2-3 weeks. We ask you to record your observations. When I ate such and such, this is what it made me feel like.
Yeah.
So pretty soon we just get it into the box, understanding just how far out of center you are and whether you're up this way or down this way, wherever you are, away from the middle. And we always want to bring you towards the middle where you're balanced and have the most choices in your behavior.
Yeah. And is that middle for people, is that middle, do you find that that middle and that balance for each individual is pretty unique for each individual? Or do you feel like there's like a commonality in anything?
Well, when you're closer to the middle, your behavior choices are great. You're
Yeah.
not you're not overly impatient and you're not overly depressed. You're just you have a lot of flexibility. Like
You feel good.
you're not a slave to your physiology. You're
Right.
fine, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
some people are born close to the middle and they have an easier time, but some people are born further out in the peripheries and they have a harder time getting it right. And some people are more stable, sort of like a sumo wrestler who would be standing with center of gravity down. If you try to push him over, he's hard to push over.
Right.
And another person will be less stable, like me standing on one foot with my eyes closed. You take one finger, push on me, and I'll fall over.
Yeah.
And in this metaphor, so I have some people who are really resilient, like their moods are stable, but
Right.
other people who are totally not, like they are swinging from one side to the other with just a small change in what they put on their plate.
Wow. Wow.
And then one more
So
thing, one
yeah,
more
go
thing.
ahead. Go ahead.
One more thing we also discovered doing this test is the endocrine dominance. And the endocrine dominance controls how you gain or lose weight and what kind of foods you crave or desire. So, for example, the thyroid dominant people are always attracted to starchy foods. So they'll be happy to eat cake or donut or potato chips, whereas the adrenal dominant people will not care for that one bit. They want to eat things that are savory.
Hmm.
And then the third type, pituitary, they're attracted to creamy, fluffy things like whipping cream and yogurt and ice cream. So, and those are, call it kryptonite. Those are
Yeah.
the foods that get them. For example, the thyroid people will gain weight with starches that they find attractive. And so they need to
Yeah.
figure out how to actually eat meals that are fat protein rich. Oh, and the other thing is the pituitary people do great on a large breakfast and small dinner. And the adrenals, they do great on hardly any breakfast and big dinner. And the thyroid, they do well on 3 equal size things. So
Oh
again,
wow.
there are differences, and these differences
Yeah.
Or if you understand your type, you will never wonder, right? Is keto
Yeah.
diet for me? Well, I can tell you when you do the test, I can tell you, well, if you get yourself on a keto diet, you'll be happy and fat,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
you'll be nervous and skinny, or
Yeah.
or the other combination, right? Like there are these combinations that some of them are easier, others
Wow.
not so much, right? So you could be naturally happy and naturally not gaining weight. It's a gift from nature, but not everybody gets one.
Yeah. No, I hear that. So I love this because this is super interesting to me. I've been on a massive journey in my own health
Yeah,
for the past couple of years. And I've tried a lot of different things, and I've tried to do similar, like what you're talking about. Just kind of tracking, like, okay, when I eat this way, how am I feeling? How am I showing up? What's going on? Because I'm right there with you. Me personally, I lean a little bit more on the emotion side. Like, I like to help people be able to digest their emotions and be able to stabilize and regulate their emotions, because that's what I've gotten really good at. And that's like my area of expertise. But I definitely always agree and feel like the mental and emotional are also very affected by the physical, and you have to be kind of working on both to find that balance. And so I love this because I've tried a lot of different things, and I know that sometimes, like, I feel good, but I think that having this information, or being able to get to this place where you can find more about your individual self, because it's so interesting, because obesity runs in my family, and it feels like if I'm not on like a lower carb diet, like, I am like gaining weight like crazy, and it's just so hard to find that balance. So I love this test, and I definitely feel like I'm going to check it out too. So I'm
perfect.
curious how you got here. Like, what has been your journey? Like, what led you here? Did something
Yeah.
happen that called you to it?
No, well, I can tell you, I grew up in a regular kind of a household. My father was a veterinarian. He showed me around. I was naturally intelligent, and I was curious, and I grew up believing in professionals and science, and I just totally bought the whole cultural thing. And I actually grew up in Czechoslovakia, so that was the um, back then police state, communists, and the rest of it. And I didn't like that much after I grew up. So what's the word? I defected. I became a refugee. I actually applied under the United Nations refugee status and got myself to Canada. And first job I got, I was a healthy young man, was in a sawmill. And so that was physical work, like serious, you know, heavy physical
Yeah.
demand. And 90 days in, this was a fully unionized shop. 90 days in, I got my health plan, and it included dental. So I went to the dentist. I said, I haven't had a checkup in 2 years. Tell me. And sure enough, of course, he saw that I had full dental coverage, that I wouldn't care one bit just how much I was going to spend. So he did a sales job on me and sold me on 12 fillings. Your teeth need fixing. And they were mercury amalgam fillings.
Oh, wow.
So what started was a massive poisoning by mercury. And I didn't understand it, but all of a sudden I started falling apart. So in the next 7 years, I was going downhill really hard. Like by the time I was 33, I had allergies, periodontal disease, my back wouldn't hold. I had carpal tunnel syndrome, plantar fasciitis, back problems, none of which I had before the treatment.
Yeah.
And of course, I was trying to get help. And so I went to the professionals. So first I saw a orthopedic surgeon. He gave me a shot of hydrocortisone, and my problems were away for 6 weeks. And then they came back worse than ever, because
Oh,
of course
man.
it's just a pill, right?
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't fix anything. And I saw chiropractor, multiple chiropractors, and a lot, right? Like they are good at what they do. They put me back together. So my back would just
But
fail, and
it's
they would put it back
temporary.
together. but it would keep failing. Like I had 3 good days or 10 good days, and then it would be over again. And then I went to naturopaths, and that was mainly because of the allergies. And he tested me for allergies. I had lots of them, and we were trying to work on allergies. But not one of these professionals was asking, well, what is the cause of this?
Yeah.
And at some point, I just had this epiphany, which was, I mean, my education is computer science and business administration. So I'm a systems analyst. So it was, well, analyze this. And the analysis came back with, well, you're poisoned, you're toxic, and these people are treating your symptoms, not the cause.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the journey, right? Like I realized that nobody's going to help me. I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah.
So I read a lot, right? Like this is 1980s, no internet. This was libraries and books. I mean, you see about maybe a quarter of stuff that I've read behind me. And anyway, I eventually figured it out. And then once figured out, I knew how to help myself. And then I realized, you know what? I'm going to share this with the world. So
yeah, and I love that. And so one of the things that sticks out to me about your story that I'm curious about, whenever I was learning a little bit more about you, I feel like you talk a lot about detoxification. So was that kind of your first step when you realized like this is the cause? Like, is that kind of the first step that you bring people through when they're out of balance? Do they have to go through that detoxification?
Yeah. In the end, I came up with four pillars or four what shall we call it? Yeah, pillars on which illness or disease stands. And it's toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, and trauma. And trauma is the invisible stuff. You mentioned emotional. And we as children pick up all kinds of stuff and stuff it in our subconscious. We have these programs running in our heads that are not necessarily very supportive. And we need to unwind all that. And then, of course, we can have current trauma, right? Like if you have, trauma, as in we hear the letters PTSD, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, the trauma is in the middle of it. And so you can create a problem either by an emotional event, something really big, bad, ugly, watching a murder, or I don't even want to say many words on that, but people see things or experience things that they should not have. And it can traumatize them just like that in one go.
Exactly.
Or you can have a drip. You can grow up as a child in an alcoholic's household, and you will be emotionally insecure, always wondering, am I going to get beat today or am I safe? Or things like that, right? Like just insecure environment. So that can just scar you for life, and it needs to be dealt with. So that's the trauma part. And of course, the other invisible stuff is things in the air and Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is a new thing. Electromagnetic frequencies are actually triggering the autonomic nervous system into what's known as the voltage-gated calcium channel, meaning that you will be flooding your cells with calcium in response to the electromagnetic frequencies that you'll experience. And when that happens, you're putting yourself into the fight-flight, into the sympathetic side of your autonomic system, which we could talk about in a moment. Anyway, so you'll be stressed because of your soup that you're in. The aquarium that you're swimming in is actually stressing you.
Yeah.
And then stagnation, that's lack of movement, especially in the lymphatics. Your extracellular or interstitial fluids and your lymphatic fluids do not have their own pump. They need to be moved by us moving. So that's walking, jumping, bouncing, running, exercise, movement. If there's no movement, we stagnate. And
Yeah.
stagnation, well, that's a swamp. Swamp is putrid. It smells
Yes.
bad, and
It makes sense.
then the malnutrition, well, that's absence of things that should have gotten into us and didn't. Food
Right.
that we should acquire but aren't. The main trouble is our current food-like substances that are given to us are very rich in calories and not so rich in nutrients. We
Right.
are calorie rich, nutrient poor, and that creates serious problems of malnutrition. I could be living in a very rich society and be malnourished, not
Right.
calorically, but nutritionally.
Right.
And the last one, toxicity. Well, we live in the industrial age. So with the, starting with about 1800, we started first burning coal, and then what else did we do? We introduced radio, television, we introduced cars, so we started burning petroleum, we introduced chemicals, plastics, all of these things. And every time we invent a new thing, it goes into the environment, and there is no natural decomposition system. It's just accumulating, and it's
Right.
rising and rising and rising. And I'll give you the metaphor, right? If I'm standing in water this deep, I'm okay. This deep, I can't talk. This deep, I can't breathe. And this deep, I won't live.
Right.
Right? And so we are living in an aquarium, really, right?
Right.
And if you visualize the aquarium, the fish eat food from the water and they poop back in it.
Right.
So if there isn't some recycling method, the technical method would be an air pump and a filter. In a natural environment, it would be a whole lot of plants that are taking the toxins and turning them into living mass. And a plant, a tree, will take carbon from the air or from water and turn it into oxygen and mass, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, all of this. So these four things: toxicity, you have to get rid of stuff that you have acquired that doesn't belong. If you don't, you'll suffer. Let's call them blocking factors. They will be blocking the natural expression of health. Your body is homeostatic. It wants to do right. But if you're loaded with blocking factors, you just can't get it
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So what are some of the detox strategies that people can do daily? Because it sounds like this is kind of a daily thing that we're facing, like within our environment. And it sounds like you may have mentioned a couple that would be helpful, like making sure you're moving, making sure there's no stagnation, and then maybe keeping more plants in your environment, plants near you, around you as often as you can, because that seems like that might be able to help with some of the external things that we can't really control. Is there any other things, or are those some of the things that you like to
Yeah,
suggest?
definitely. Yeah, definitely that. And well, there are two types of toxicities: metabolic and environmental, right?
Right.
Metabolic is your body is working, but it's poisoning itself. So you're eating badly and you're poisoning your gut, you're poisoning your liver, kidneys, and so on. So you need to do these personal metabolic cleanses. Fasting 1 day a week is an awesome method. Drinking better water that's not toxic and that's energetically rearranged is helpful. Taking antioxidants, the vitamins A, B, C, D, E, K, whatever, all these things are contributing to our ability to cope with it. The industrial toxins, the environmental toxins, they're harder because there's no natural genetic pathway in us to deal with it. We're not designed, like my example, there's no natural way of getting rid of mercury or lead or cadmium or the forever chemicals like PFOAs, like Teflon and all of those similars, or dry cleaning fluid or fire retardant. All of that stuff that's put into our environment stays, and there is very limited ability to get rid of it. So we need to do some support. The two main pathways, the mainstream people have been using EDTA as detox. That's their thing. It's pretty dangerous because you need to really watch. EDTA is very indiscriminate in what it takes. So you need to make sure you're replenished, right? So you're really causing trouble. The stuff that I used is called zeolite. That's spelled Zeolite. And zeolite is a really unique mineral. It's a binder. It's electronegative, both on the inside and then on its surface. And electronegativity attracts electropositive things, which are the toxic things. So when you put the zeolite in your body, it will bind, hold, and help you excrete the natural pathways, urine, feces, sweat. It leaves your body.
Wow.
So that's how I put myself back together. I put myself on a fairly serious amount of zeolite at first. It was maybe a year of high dose. And I continue to this day with a small maintenance dose because I still live in a toxic environment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, I feel like something that I talk a lot about with my students, because I work a lot with trauma, healing, emotional stability. And so it's very similar. Both paths are very similar, because when you have like a wound or when you're in a toxic environment, you have to have this, it becomes more of a lifestyle when you actually go, because if you were to take that zeolite and not continue to do other things, then it's just, those toxins are just going to come right back. And so when we need to learn how to, like in my case, a lot of my clients, like some patience, boundaries, being able to maintain emotional regulation, those things, once you learn the tools, it's not what like oh, overnight, now you're all better. You never have to process your emotions ever again. You're never going to have a bad day ever again. You're never going to have a hard time ever again. You're never going to get any more toxins ever again. And I think that our minds like to play this game of, oh, we just check a box. And it really is about, and that's why it's so important to me and what I do. And it sounds like you teach your students how to maintain what their success that they receive. That's something that's so important in what I do as well. Is you've got to learn the tools, but those are your foundation tools. And every time there's a flare up in anything, you go back to those tools and you use those tools and you allow yourself to stay in a maintained regulation and balance. So I love that. Um, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about, so I know you're on Udemy, you have courses on Udemy. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what do those courses look like? Because you've had a lot of students, he's had over 19,000 students. This is so cool. I love that.
Yeah, I don't know what they get. I don't know how successful they are, right? But
Because you don't get to keep up with them.
yeah, they don't. I don't know if they finish. I don't know if they apply or implement or whatever. Udemy keeps us away from it. But as far as a course goes, these are 3 to 5 minute segments of video, and it's a lecture that tries to explain it. So I just did a very quick explanation of those 4 pillars of illness, the toxicity, malnutrition, stagnation, trauma. Well, I have a 4 hour version of that where I go into a lot of details explaining to people how that is. Or I have a course about putting together a superfood blend for your breakfast. What do you need to put together? Or how you shop for food, or understanding your endocrine dominance. How can you tell if you're I don't know, thyroid type, adrenal type, pituitary type? There are clues. You can totally know it for yourself. You can
Yeah.
take the shortcut and take the test, right? Like you can do it the lazy way, pay me some money and I'll tell you back exactly. That's why you hire consultants, because they
Right.
help you get to your goal quicker. Or you can just work it yourself. So I give it away. So people who want to be educated, they can
They
get
have,
it.
yeah, and I feel the same way. I do a lot of my classes and I try, I do a lot of events and stuff. So I'm kind of the same way, and I just want to give the information so that way people can take it. But of course, that's exactly what we're here for. All we do, if you want to work with us privately, we're just here to hold your hand, keep you accountable, make sure that you bypass, make it easier so you can bypass those mistakes that you're going to make when you do it all by yourself, right? So we can get you there quicker, easier. So Something you said earlier kind of stuck out to me because it's kind of a controversial and it's so confusing with all the information that's out there. And you said like if you're eating poorly, you're gonna feel those effects. So I'm curious, what kind of is your definition of a healthier or a better um, diet or eating lifestyle versus, because like I said, there's so much information and it can be so
Right.
controversial. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are.
Okay. Well, the number one thing is the industrial complex, the large agricultural business supported by large chemical business, growing food in large things and processing in large amounts, is serving us things that are like food porn. It's highly seductive and it's not real.
Yeah.
So they know how to make your mouth want more. I mean, MSG is one of those things. These days, most everybody knows that MSG is a stimulant that will cause you to want to eat more. But you can do better. You can actually fine tune the mix of the salty, sweet, and crunchy and whatever, and make it so that you want more, even if you're full. But then the food in general is actually grown on fields that are not mineralized correctly. They're fertilized with NPK, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Food grows fast, big, nice looking, but it's actually deficient. It's deficient in micronutrients. So the story is this: the white things, white sugar, refined flour, or refined sugar, refined flour, refined oils. What else do we have? Refined dairy. Well, dairy is just bad because it's processed. I can't think of the fifth one, but all of these things that you find in the grocery stores right now are actually foods that are going to kill you, or at least give you an illness. So if you want, there's a huge wisdom in our consumer society. It's called your wallet. And if you vote with your dollars, more of what you're buying is going to be made. So if you're buying stupid foods that are refined and devoid of nutrients, more of that will be made. I know it's hard for most everyone to make the commitment, but we should be eating organic, biodynamic, wholesome foods. When you vote with your dollars for that, you will A, be healthier, and B, you will actually in the long run make that stuff more affordable. So that's
Yeah,
my
I love that.
starting point. Raw food is important because it has nutrients, especially enzymes, in it. The more enzymes you eat, the healthier you'll be. That means salads or juicing. Raw food is awesome. Vegetarian is great. I'm not saying vegetarian is required, but you should probably be eating responsible meats like free-range chickens and grass-fed beef and wild-caught fish. Like the large-scale farming gives us foods that are cheaper, but they are actually nutritionally deficient. That's what's part of the problem.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be on the nutrition side. Of course, these days, I already mentioned the depleted soils. There's zero chance that eating food that's in ordinary grocery stores and served in fast food restaurants is actually nutritionally complete. So you will have to supplement. And how you supplement, again, the one a day concept of the single pill that you can take, that thing is so reduced and so compacted that there really is a zero chance of it actually doing you much good.
Yeah.
You need to be eating bigger supplements. We actually make that in our shop. We make superfood blends,
I
and
love that.
these are served by the teaspoon. You take 2-3 teaspoons of this powder in water or juice or smoothie, and that contains the volume of nutrients that are actually going to work.
Yeah. So speaking of, this, it being hard for people to make that commitment because of the convenience. Everything is so fast paced. Everything is always go, 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 which is also affecting our nervous systems and making things even worse, mentally speaking. And then, driving us to make those decisions that maybe are cheaper or easier or faster. So, what are some like practical tips that you suggest for people that can aid them in being able to maintain their vitality and maintain their health when this is kind of going on? What can help them make that jump or that commitment?
Right. Well, the number one thing really is you need to get rid of the toxins that you're packing around. When you lower the overall toxicity, all of your operations improve. And when you do daily or weekly or seasonally detoxing, improving the health of your gut, the liver, the kidneys, that will improve your general operation. And then, of course, making sure that the nutrients you put in daily are in fact worth putting in. That's the whole thing, really. Refined oils. If you go to a grocery store and buy oil, if you're buying plant seed oil like safflower, sunflower, corn oil, that sort of thing, that's been refined away. There's no omega-3 stuff in it, and that's what you need. So you need to buy flax seed oil in the refrigerated section of your health food store. Or you need to be eating fruit oils, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, palm oil. Those are the healthy ones.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take, the shortcut, if you take the health test, the metabolic typing test with us, it comes with a user's manual. I will send you afterwards why you should eat more of this and less of that. And I will send you how you should prepare your food. And I will send you how to shop for healthier food. And I will send you all these guides, right? So if you
that would be great. And I'll put it in the description box below so that the listeners can get it. So you can, if you'll share that with me, that would be great.
Advertising works. And the rich companies are advertising a lot. And they're advertising their stuff. And they convince you to buy their stuff. But their stuff is not worth having, I promise.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. So I love that you are, focusing more on the nutritionally dense, because that's, I'm sure you've seen Kiss the Ground, the new Netflix documentary. I love that. And it talks a lot about that. It talks a lot about how massive agriculture is taking away the nutrition in the soils and using these chemicals. Like you said, it's making everything look very seductive, very pretty, very good, but it's not actually giving us what we need. So, would you say, and I just intuitively feel like this is probably the case, like once you take that step towards getting rid of those toxins and you start working on that, what I believe in turn can happen, because I noticed this with myself when I am focusing on what are the food, like the organic foods and the foods that I know are going to be nutritionally dense, and I'm staying away from the fast food and the processed foods, and the refined foods. I noticed that after a few days of being consistent with doing that, I don't even want the other stuff because my system is just automatically becoming more balanced and more in alignment with what it needs. So when you are giving yourself what you need, and you just start taking those steps, you're going to notice, at least from my experience, and I'm sure I see you shaking your head, so I can tell you agree, that just within a short amount of time, you're going to notice you're going to even stop. You're not even going to have those withdrawals that we're so afraid of but it takes the right supplements. And if you know what you're getting and you're being nutritionally fulfilled, then those cravings can stop going away. But if you're missing, if you're on a diet or you're trying to lose weight or whatever it is, and you're missing those things and you're not getting that, then that's where the withdrawal comes in. And I think that's why people end up going back and forth, because they don't realize that they're missing something, that if they could just get back into that alignment, then those cravings and those withdrawals aren't even going to happen. At least that's from my experience. Do you feel like that's pretty accurate for you too?
Well, yes, natural healing involves detoxification, and it comes to when you're healing, there's a reversal of symptoms. Like if you're becoming sick, there are always loss of function, right? Like every chronic degenerative inflammatory disease will lead to loss of function. Like something will work less well than it did before. So visualize it as stair steps going downhill, having less ability. Well, so when you start healing, fixing, feeding yourself better, you will be going back up that hill toward health, toward better function. And some of that will involve getting rid of things. So I remember in my early days after I hit the detox, all of a sudden it felt like somebody attached a garden hose to my nose, because for 3 weeks it just ran and ran and ran and ran. I was getting rid of, I was purging stuff. So
Yep.
there's such a thing. Now, it's possible to slow it down. If you're trying to detox yourself too fast, you will suffer symptoms, and there will be runny nose, headache, diarrhea, others, fevers, whatever. All of
Right.
that is just par for the course. If
When
you're
you're
pushing
detox.
too hard, you can slow down and make it more moderate. But the detoxification will naturally require you to go in reverse over that bumpy road with a little more comfort, but still it's bumpy.
Yeah. No, I think that this has been really awesome, really helpful. Is there any topics that you're really passionate about that you feel like we didn't get to cover yet?
Well, three main things. What really wrecked me was having health insurance.
Oh,
What
wow.
got done wasn't what I needed, but what got
Mm,
done was what was covered. And I want
yeah.
to warn people is that they really watch what they submit to, not thinking, right?
Right.
Just because it's covered doesn't mean it's right or good for you.
Right.
So that's worth thinking about. The other, it's up to you. Every one of us is individually in charge of our life outcomes. It is not up to the government. It is not up to your mommy, daddy, whoever, to take care of you. You must take care of you and the people who depend on you, which probably are your children and possibly your spouse.
Right.
So it's take ownership of your life. It's,
It's our responsibility.
yeah.
Yeah,
Even,
that's
yeah,
go
even
ahead.
with emotional injuries, even with mental illness, it is until you actually decide that the buck stops here, you will be at the hands of people who do not necessarily have your benefits or your health as their core requirement.
Yeah. I 100% agree. That really speaks to, a big paradigm that I'm really passionate about, which is think for yourself.
Hey, girl, you go.
Think for yourself. Figure, it's love knowledge. And I agree, knowledge is power, but it can also be debilitating if we get so dogmatic in different things and we're not thinking for ourselves, taking responsibility for our own thoughts and feelings and what matters to us. And we can get so tied up in what matters to, like what you were saying, our parents, the government, society, and everybody around us, because we want to fit in. We crave that connection, we crave that acceptance, and it can override our ability to think for ourselves.
Yes.
And it's that journey from unconscious behaviors to conscious behaviors that I'm really passionate about too. So I love that you throw that in there.
Mm.
Well, this has been great. Can you share with us the best way? And I know you're going to share some links with me so that I can provide those resources. But if
Mhm.
you wanted to share what's like your website or the best place for people to kind of connect with you.
Right. The business is called Life Enthusiast, and the website is life dash, is in the minus sign, enthusiast, ENTHUSIAST.com. And there's a phone number and there's a contact us, and that's just not me. I have a whole team of really caring, smart people who are able to help all of the visitors. We're unlike the typical online store. You know, you can go to any online store, the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world. All they do is provide you the click button and they send you the goods. No questions answered. Whatever's on the web page is all you get. With us, you can actually call in and get consulting, get a coach help, figure out why you are where you are, and shape the process. And one of the important parts is this metabolic typing quiz, which answers the important question: what's going to work for you and why? So you don't have to just throw darts at it, wondering, is this going to work? You know, is keto diet for me? Or should I be eating the grapefruit diet? Well, we can answer that. We'll know.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And that's what I think, is the best part about having mentorship and whatever it is you're working on, because, like you said, you don't have to do that guesswork, and it helps you get to a place where you don't have to make all these mistakes, or because especially when it comes to your health and what you're eating and putting into your body, if you're experimenting, you're going to be on these crazy waves. And like he was saying with the detoxification process, if you are not sure what is right for you and you're trying all these different things and you need to detox, those withdrawals or those symptoms are going to come up, because I know this has happened to me, and you're going to think, oh, it's the diet, or oh, it's this, and you're going to be in the dark and you're going to think that you're doing something wrong, and you might go back to what you were doing because you weren't feeling bad, but little did you know you were detoxing. And so it's just so much easier whenever you've got that help. So Martin, this was great, and I really go ahead if you want to speak.
You're missing an important point to say. You need people like Heather when you run into the pitfalls of the emotional turmoil, because there's no doubt. In fact, I am convinced that 80% of our problem isn't physical. It's the non-physical emotional. So when you run into trouble, you need help. You cannot fix it yourself. You really cannot. I've tried. You need help.
Well, and that's what I think is so beautiful, and I appreciate you for mentioning what I do too, because where I was, 6 years ago, before I learned like what I teach now, it's exactly what you're saying. You can't get out of it. You're stuck there. And what has been so beautiful and such a gift with what I've learned is I genuinely really feel like not that I still recommend everybody have help when they need help, but to be in a place where you can emotionally regulate yourself and get to a place where you can trust your intuition, trust your emotions, trust what's happening inside of your body, the less like you can. My clients and I get to this place where you have your own autonomy, where you can think for yourself and make those decisions and get out of those places that are stuck without, feeling like you need a whole support team to get you there, because you can trust yourself. And that is a possibility. That is a possibility, a place for people to get to. And I know because I've seen it happen hundreds of times. And so you can get to a place where you ultimately trust yourself, but I had to have the tools to get there. My clients needed the tools to get there, but all of these places of equilibrium, balance, and trusting yourself and being able to be the leader of your own life is a possible place to reach. So I love this. This is great, Martin. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited to share this with our listeners, and all your guides will be in the description box. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you are liking, subscribing, leaving us a comment, because that helps us out to spread our word and our messages and this knowledge, and also sharing with people that you think might benefit. And we will see you guys in the next episode, and hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.